glad to be here as always, but today I feel the pressure after a long time, and hope you will just bear with me. It's been a while, and as you know, it's not my strongest point, but I learned not to say no to God, so that's why I'm here, and I'm trying my best. And also, what I'm going to present is not necessarily something that I want to present from a position of knowing or from a knowledge point of view, but it's just something that I learned myself and from other people I tried to put together. And also I was inspired by someone from Romania, a preacher from Romania that I follow sometimes. And this is the topic. It's about planning, and I think it's very practical in a way, because we all plan. And I'm going to start by reading in James 4:13-17. There will be quite a few Bible verses, so if you want to help me, I'll be appreciated. So James 4. Can anyone help me with this one?
Oh, James.
Is it John? No?
It's James, yeah?
James, yeah.
James 4:13 and 17. Go to now, ye that say, today or tomorrow, we will go in such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away.
Thank you. We'll come back to this Bible verse because this is very much, this will go around this topic, but I was thinking, because we are quite close to the beginning of the year and we make plans, it's a lesson, and the question is whether we should make plans or let God make plans. We always hear this question, but perhaps sometimes I personally don't know how to handle that. How am I supposed to let God plan for me? And you know what to handle when I don't know what to do, it seems like a dead end. And we're going to study a little bit about the connection between plans and being able to hear God's voice. In John 8:47, it says, "He that is of God heareth the words of God, for this cause ye hear them, not because ye are not of God." So basically it says, if you are not of God, you are not able to hear His voice. That's why it says in this Bible verse. So sometimes we are not able to hear God's voice, and does that mean that we are not of God? Let's dig a bit deeper into this subject. First of all, why do we have to get close to God and hear His word? These words were the words of Jesus to a crowd of people that were listening to Him. And He was preaching about this, about being able to hear God's voice. What are some ways we know today to do that? Very common ones. We studied this morning actually about reading the Holy Bible. It's about prayer, meditation, and sometimes it is also fasting. But the thing I want to say is that this is actually a choice, and it's a choice whether to rely on self or to focus on hearing God's voice first. As a child of God, we cannot rely on self because we know very clearly how destructive self is. And if we decide to dedicate our lives to God, when a church, a family, or a person, when something happens, what do they do usually? They start praying really hard and fasting. That's the most, let's say, extreme forms of going to God and going like into audience to God and asking Him that He may listen to our needs. So when a family, they all fast, it must be very serious. But actually what happens in those moments, when they decide to fast and pray, they get closer to God. And the closer we get to God, these two things happen: consecration and ministry. So consecration is sanctification as well. So that's the goal, is becoming sanctified and becoming more like Jesus. And ministry is helping and serving others. We don't have to be a minister to do the work of ministry. It's part of our journey. Now, if we want God to be part of our plans and we start playing for this, can we skip these steps?
No.
We cannot. And sometimes we expect God to be part of our plans and help us, but we just wanted a short way. But we cannot skip these steps, unfortunately, because unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Unless we go through consecration and ministry, God cannot really use us and change our plans, and we're gonna go a bit deeper into that. And now, we all know about the majority, that we are called to be different and to be a light. And we are not following the majority. We do not allow ourselves to be influenced by the majority. We are a light to them. The power of God, we are a light to them through the power of God, not through our own power. In 1 Peter 2:9, it says, anyone can hear me? 1 Peter 2:9? Yeah.
Okay. Is it Proverbs or Proverbs 1:15?
Okay, let's read 1 Peter 2:9 and then we're going to read that one as well. 1 Peter 2:9, just the things I was talking about. But ye are an elect race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people of God, own possessions, that ye may be shew for the excellencies of Him who called out of the darkness into His marvelous light. We are called, in other translations said, elect people, peculiar people even. Royal priesthood, that's us. But the truth is, the majority don't actually know God's plan with their life. The majority of people don't know. That's a fact. I mean, you can see that people live randomly. They live according to what they feel or what their friends do, or I don't know. But the thing I know for sure is that actually we can live however we want, but the happiest life we can live, we cannot produce happiness for ourselves. We don't have that capacity. The happiest life we can live is by following God's plan with our life, because that gives us a purpose that is also fulfilling for our souls. And knowing God's plan, it's something that we have to get closer to Him so He may reveal it to us. Because we can have everything in life and not be happy. Remember, who was the most, let's say, successful man in the world and the wisest? Solomon, and his conclusion was that all is vanity. And not even Solomon, even in our life today, you see people that are very successful and still they are unhappy. because it's nothing else that can bring happiness. It can bring up to a point a happiness that is not sustainable, but then after that we are all empty. No matter how much possessions we got, how many friends we have, or the knowledge we have, the career we have, or, things like that. And I was thinking about myself as a young person in the church, not a lot of experience, but trying. We young people generally are in a stage of life where we don't know God's plan with us yet. Yeah, we are sometimes busy discovering things in life, sometimes busy in our social circle that is very important. And I see young people, including myself, when we are called to do something, we ask questions like, we ask for certain conditions, like, I don't know, if that person comes, then I might come as well. If you organize something that is special, not just the ordinary, then I might consider joining. Or, I don't know, today I go to this church, tomorrow I go to somewhere else, and I am not decided. This is normal. And this is the reality that we are undecided. But instead of being like this, how we should be like young people? What do you think? If God wants me to be there, I will go. If He says no, I also have to say no. So basically, no matter what happens around, that is never more important than God is for me. So that person might come or he might not come, but that doesn't influence me. And I was thinking about this. It's a true tragedy living life randomly. And people, I'm talking about young people, but some people never get over this stage and they live their lives randomly for the rest of their lives. And the majority do, to be honest. But we are not to be blown away by the wind like this easily. Always be undecided. But then I was thinking about all the people, because we were talking in the Sabbath school about spiritual warfare. It's not going to end once you get a bit mature spiritually. It's not ending. It's still, the warfare is still there. There are some other things that happen. And I've met people that after, let's say, being married, actually a long time, 20 years of marriage, they were quite unsure whether the partner was from God or not. And these things can happen. After years of faith, I know people that, get discouraged, or their spiritual condition is worsening. So the thing I understood is that age is not as important. It's, of course, at the younger stage we go through different problems than when we are older, but the same fight we have to fight regardless. And I was always told that, you shouldn't be making plans, you should be letting God make plans for you. But actually, I think God created us with this capacity of planning. And if God created us with this capacity, we are supposed to use it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been created with this. So it means we have to use it. And we all do. In all areas of life. Education, finance, family, church, of course. But today I just want to, because that's how I did, look at my plans and compare them to the Bible, and I challenge you to do the same. And we're going to look at a few examples from the Bible where first type of plans that are made by man are destroyed by God. This is the first category of plans that are made by man and destroyed by God. And can we read Job 5, 12, 13? Brother, this.
12:13.
Yes, 12 and 13.
He disappointed the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the forward is carried heavy.
Okay. In Romanian, he actually uses a term closer to plans, the plans of the crafty. So, does he say that God destroys good or bad plans? Is that what it talks about?
In Spanish, it says, destroy plans.
The plans, exactly, the plans. But the Bible verse doesn't say that God will destroy good or bad plans. It doesn't talk about how good or bad those plans were. But it talks about how God will stop their plans. Whose plans? Of the crafty. So there is no kind of detail about what kind of plans they have, but it's the plans of the crafty. So before making plans, before asking what does God want from me, we have to first look at ourselves, our character. It says crafty and then it says cunning in other translation. I'm not saying we are crafty or cunning, but can we be sometimes?
Yes.
So, if there is any elements of these things in us, God will. We cannot allow God to. Let's give you an example, then we can understand this a bit better. For example, what kind of plans can a thief make? It's obviously they cannot be good. To steal, to hurt people, even if it's not physical hurting. Some thieves can do that, so they can steal. But if you steal from someone, you hurt them anyway. So it's not about the plans, but it's the character of the person. Can we hurt people as well? Yes. All the time. If we are not under divine guidance, is in our natural way to hurt people. Sometimes we don't know that we do it. It happens. So we should be looking at our character first before we look at our plans. And Ahithophel is the example I want to give you in 2 Samuel 16:23. And the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man inquired at the oracle of God. So was all counsel of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom. Maybe we know the history, what happened. But Ahithophel first served David. He was his most trusted advisor. And in a Romanian translation, it even says that his word had the same power as if it was coming directly from God. Let's imagine now this. If here in London, we will be a man and we go to him and we know for sure that what he says has the same power as if it comes from God directly, can we ever imagine that man would kill himself? So my point here is that God can use me a month, a year, 10 years, 20, 30 years, no matter how long, but that doesn't mean that I'm safe. So the counsel of Ahithophel was extremely good. His advice was perfect from all points of view, military-wise. He was the most trusted advisor of David. But what was the problem? His plans? Or the problem was when David had to run, he did what? He said, I'm not coming with you. And he ended up taking his own life. So actually he joined Absalom's side. And in human eyes, maybe let's say that would make more sense. And I'm sure the way he advised Absalom was great. But it was against God's will. So that makes me think now that I might serve the Lord for a long time, but then in my life it might come a point, very hard point, where I have to make a choice. And if I choose to leave David's side and join Absalom's side, it doesn't matter how good my advice or my planning is, I'm going to fail. And that's a very important lesson. And in this case, it's tragic because he ended up taking his own life. I think in this year I've been thinking about it. God wants us to stay with Him, to stay in His church, and keep our own integrity. So Ahithophel didn't have a problem with planning, but he had a problem with his character. And now let's look at ourselves. We were talking about transformation, outwards and inwardly. We see each other here in church, we see our, let's say, part social or our part outside, but family, friends, they know us much better. If what we live in a home is not according to what we live in public, then we have a big problem. Because it's a question of character. And we live, what's the reality of this world? I've been thinking about this really hard. This world is a world of image. Yeah? But character is a lot more important than image. And David was praying to God, please destroy the plans of Ahithophel because he wants to kill me, and God does. And the man goes and kills himself as well. So let's remember, if ever hard days will come for everyone, you have to make hard decisions. That's everyone will go through that. And what will keep us to keep straight, keep our integrity, is not our image, but it's our character. You know how many pictures are uploaded daily on Instagram? Any idea? A number? 95 million daily. Okay, and usually, what do we do when we post on Instagram? We don't show our miserable side of life. No, everything is about smiling, traveling, nice things. So that's all image. That's all. But is that the real me? No, that's just a small picture of me, but it doesn't show an entire image of my life. It just shows a small part. So image actually, in comparison with the character, is just nothing. And I'm gonna give you another example with, look, the buildings, yeah, because we live in a big city, huge, very large buildings. I'm not sure how many earthquakes are in this area, in this place of the world, but let's say in Romania maybe there are more. But when an earthquake comes, what is the thing that will test? Foundation. It's not going to test a nice, fancy looking building up, up in the sky or whatever. That's going to just fall immediately. So that's the character, that is the foundation. And those things of the character will be the ones that will be really tested. Okay, that was plans made by man and destroyed by God. This is drastic. But this is not the only types of plans, of course. There are plans made by man and just allowed by God. Okay? So it's not plans I didn't say plans that are according with God's will or not. It's just plans that are made by man and allowed by God. And the example I want to give you is in Numbers 6:8. Anyone like to help? 22, 6 to 8. Sister.
Come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me these people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I will that he whom thou blessest is blessed, and he whom thou cursest is cursed. And the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand, and they came unto Balaam and spake unto him the words of Balak. And he said unto them, Lodge here this night, and I will bring you word again, as the Lord shall speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam.
Thank you. So, it's about Balaam, and what was he doing? He was praying to God. About what? To curse the children of Israel. If someone comes to me and he says, I need you to curse someone, do I need to pray to God to ask for what? I know for sure that I'm not supposed to do that, so there's no point to pray about that. I know the answer already. And in verse 12 it says clearly not to go with them and don't curse them. So this is the words of God. He says, don't do it. No, don't go with them. Don't curse them. But what happens in verse 13? Balaam tells them, go. But is he like very convinced or very excited when he says it? He just says, look, I wanted to help you. I even prayed to God. But unfortunately he said no. So you just have to go. Okay? So he, in a way, he kind of wanted to go with them. But I'm not allowed. And then verse 18, did he stop there? Let's read verse 18. Can someone read Numbers 22, verse 18?
And Balaam answered and said unto the servant of Balak, if Balak will give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God, to do less or more.
So Balaam said, even if the king will give me everything, I will not go beyond the voice of God. But did he stop there? It would be wonderful if he stopped there. But he didn't stop there. In verse 19, he says, now therefore I pray you, tarry also here this night, that I may know what the Lord will speak unto me more. So this is a while after the first time, And he didn't tell them, go, I told you already I'm not going to come. He said, no, stay here this night. I'm going to pray again. Did he know the answer to his prayer already? He knew it before he prayed the first time, because how can God say, be happy for him to curse? He knew already, but he prayed once, and now he prayed twice about the same thing. We know the ending, yeah? God said, okay, if you persist like this, go, but you have to say what I tell you to say. We know why God doesn't allow us to go certain places. Because we cannot say the words He tells us to say in those places. We are not able to. If you go clubbing every day and then come to church, then will the heart be clean? No. Because you cannot go to a club and speak the words of God. Try it, but you cannot. And what happens? We cannot have a clean heart if we watch things that we are not supposed to watch online. We cannot smell nice and behave like the prodigal son. Because what happened with the prodigal son? He ended up with the pigs. He wanted to leave the house and everything, and then with the pigs we cannot smell nice. Or let's say this boy or this girl was talking to someone older, and he was telling me this. This boy or this girl is clearly not for me, but I keep praying maybe God will say, okay. What is the only thing that can change us? What do you think? Is it the family, the church, the pastor? Sorry? Can they really change us? They cannot really change us. They can help, but the only power that can change us is the Holy Spirit. But there's one condition there, is that we also allow Him to change us. We cannot keep praying to God about the same things, but not allowing the Spirit to change us. It's the example of the rich man in the Bible. So why was he not able to change him? Because he did not allow Jesus to change him. So you see, Balaam, he won a lot of money that time. So on the short run, it looks like we are winning. He won. He got a lot of money, but if you read in Numbers 23 with 10, it says, "Oh, I wish I would die of the death of the righteous." So when he got older, he said all those money were not that important now, but he was looking at, "Oh, I wish I would die like the death of the righteous." But the truth is that we cannot be like Balaam. We cannot keep praying to God to allow us to do wrong things and then expect and then say, "Oh, I wish I would die this death." It's not possible to die the death of the righteous if we don't live the life of the righteous. Quickly, we're going to go to plans made by man and approved by God. And you remember Esther's example. Did she make a plan when she had to go face the king? She made a plan. Yeah, we know the history. Let's imagine Esther. She could choose to dress in a certain way, look in a certain way, and attract the king, which was also her husband, right? But we know that there was the rule, if she went in there and the king without appointment and the king was not happy, she could die. Anyone, not only her, but anyone, no matter who you were, you go in there and you might die if the king doesn't allow you. You had to have appointment. And she had to go there because of her people. But what she did, she didn't dress in a way to attract the king, she didn't look in a way to attract the king, but she did what? She spoke to the people, to Mordecai, and said in verse 15, please pray and fast for 3 days. And why did she do that? Because she knew if God will help her, it's all solved. She doesn't need to do, I don't know, whatever. If God will help her, it's all done. Wow, I didn't realize we have this behind, and I'm a bit slow with this presentation, but I'll just insist if you can go through it all. There is another category of plans, which is plans changed by God. Can anyone think of an example from the Bible? Okay, let's imagine we work on a plan for, I don't know, days, months, and then we have to, it's not good, we have to start from zero. Is that nice? But what if we work on the wrong plans and keep working on them, and then we realize we have to start from zero? It doesn't help. Understanding that we have to work on the right plans before we start working in any plans is very important. And the example I want to give you, exactly. Look, you remember Joseph. Let's imagine Joseph. Imagine you have brothers and you are just a teenager, 16, 17-year-old, and they want to kill you, but they say, let's not just kill him. But what they did, send him to Egypt as a slave. Was it something that just happened out of the blue? No, it was something planned by his brothers. Yeah, it was a plan. And what happened with this plan? Evil plan, let's say. God transformed it into something not only good, but the opposite, extraordinary. Because Joseph, he ended up being what? The prime minister of our country. Imagine, we cannot imagine this nowadays, but imagine then, 16, 17-year-old boy, his hands tied behind a caravan that was going to Egypt, that sold as a slave by his own brothers. What kind of future can this man have? Okay? So this is not only like my plan that is bad and it affects my life. No. This is my family's plan, my brothers. They make an evil plan that it looks like it's going to destroy my life. Not only affect it, but destroy it completely. And what happens? After years, he becomes the prime minister. No, it's convenient when we read the Bible, we already know what's going to happen. No, let's say, no emotions, no excitement, what's going to happen. Because we know. But then, Daniel, in the lion's den, he went in there, but did he know what's going to happen? No. The 3 young Hebrew boys, those ones, they didn't know what's going to happen. And all of them, the king made a plan against them to kill them, the brothers to send them in slavery. So, did God change those plans? Can God change those plans? Definitely. And this is the worst example. He can change our plans if they are not good. We have to, at some point, we might have to start from zero. Okay, now another point I want to say is that are we supposed to be discouraged by, let's say, the plans of the enemies, or enemy, Satan? They might be just in front of our eyes, and we might say it's impossible not to get affected or discouraged by them, because it's like we feel the effects of what they're doing to us. The boy Joseph was like this as a slave, not his fault, and was probably, I don't know, maybe crying, you never know. Imagine in that situation. But when he went there and things happened to him, did he just give in to the king and the civilization there, the three Hebrew young boys the same? No. So they didn't just get discouraged because people are doing things to them, but they stand, again we're going back to their character. In the heart, that was not as important. Whatever the brothers were doing to send him as a slave was not as important as it was his character and the things he learned. And we look nowadays, look at myself, I don't know if anyone maybe feels the same way, but look at Christians today, and not only people in general, we are just very easily distracted, discouraged, very sensitive, everyone. But the Christians as well, but the irony of it is that God is the strongest. We cannot be like this, because God is strong. We are His children, we are like royal. And I got this example from someone, and I was thinking about it really hard, because I like football. And what happens when the crowd is not happy? They start doing what? Booing, swearing, they say heavy words to the players or to the manager or whatever. But does Messi stop because someone in the crowd is swearing? That he just be like, stop the game, I say, I'm not continuing to look at these people. No, just an example, yeah? But he doesn't stop, but do we stop when someone, let's say, in church says, your voice is rubbish, don't sing. It might happen, even in church it might happen. And we say, from that point, we don't sing no more. Or, I don't know, speak, because someone is laughing in the back, It's hard to speak. Look, I'm struggling. But are we here to please anyone else but God? No. Not even if someone, let's say, brother had a bad day and he made a comment like this that is not very pleasant. We are not even to please each other, then more than we are to please God. In Romans 8:28, can someone read that real quick?
And we know that all things work together for God, to them that love God, and to them who are the called according to His purpose.
So what's the key? Is to love God. That's the key. That's it. That's all. It's not what someone says, what someone does. It's not the things around us. More than is our focus to be in loving God. And the promises He made, He will fulfill. You know this woman? Ever heard of her? Her name is Charlotte Elliott, and I'm going to just very quickly tell you her story, very quickly. So, she was born a Christian family, very good education, and she was also very talented in music, in poetry as well. And she grew up, she left the church, Yeah, because she wanted to focus on her career of music or writing poetry. And she started writing like humorous content, and she, of course, into singing as well, music. Everyone applauded her. Let's say she got like a bit of attention and whatever. But meanwhile, her parents were not very happy because she left the church. So what they did, they continued to pray. She was not interested in anything with the church anymore. And she grew a bit older until she reached the age of 32. This is like it's a good age. You're already past, many years. Mature person, she had her own career and everything. She got very sick. And, family and friends tried to use the opportunity to say, maybe this is a good time you come back to God. Maybe this happened to you, so you might be a bit distracted from your career, the things you're doing, and maybe focus on other things and coming back to God. And, when we go through these types of situations, we usually stop and evaluate our life and think, okay, I need God now. But she did not. She was so stubborn. She said to them, no. And she was very sick. And what the family did, they sent a famous preacher at the time to talk to her. And she rejected him. But he persisted. After a few days he came and said, Charlotte, this is the way you are, you have to come back to Christ. In the state you are in, you have to come back to Christ. And that touched her. They had a discussion, and that evening she accepted God's message and she surrendered herself to God. Her plans was to please the crowds with her using her talent, yeah? But God's plan was something different. A few years, she became a woman of faith, but a few years of this incident, she wrote a hymn that you all know. It's called Just As I Am. Okay? And after that she lived about 50 years, but she never got cured. She lived a life of suffering. But in her suffering, she was nearly like bedbound, but she accepted God's will. And the will of God with her, she wrote 140 songs. One of them, which I said, was Just As I Am. And this song was the most used song in evangelism projects all over the world. And it is said that this song is the one that brought the most people to Christ. Can you imagine that? And it was only because that girl, since she gave herself to Christ, she wasn't healthy, she didn't get married, she lived a life of suffering. After the illness, because you remember before she was quite famous like this, but after that, God did not choose to heal her. But did she accept God's plan? She did. And we are so different that God can use us in different stages. Some people can only be used by God when they are very poor, because if they get rich, they might forget about God, or when they are very ill. But we don't have to live like this. We can be blessed by God and also be able to let Him transform us and be able to let Him use us. Okay. I thought this is going to be short, but it's not. So, is it okay if I leave the second part for another time, because it's quite long already? But the second part I'm going to tell you roughly, and I'm going to present it more in detail next time, is about the nice, true plans we can do that God can also stamp, and He can say these are good plans. And I was going to talk about how we can do that. With these plans, God might destroy, He might allow, or He might change. But these plans we don't want. We don't want these plans. We want plans that God can stamp. We have God's will, and I'm going to talk about next time about this thing. God bless us all. Amen.
Amen.